It's the short talk where peace begins. We talk life, love, and what's within. Movies, healing, self-care flow. Real talk, safe space, let it grow. It's the short talk where hearts unwind. Sip your peace, speak your mind. It's the short talk, feel the vibe. It's your moment, come alive.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Eastern Shore Talk, your podcast for all things self-care movies. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. We're glad to have you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment below. If you're listening on one of the other podcast platforms, hit follow, hit subscribe, and make sure to leave a comment or review. It helps us big time. This is episode 98. I'm Jay Watson.
And I'm Cathy Cassell.
And Cathy and I are very glad and thankful to be joined all the way from the other side of the globe. And from the future is Miss Cathy Battaglia is joining us from New Zealand, and she's going to talk a little bit about her struggles, her story, and some things she's learned along the way with her self-care. And Cathy, welcome. Glad to have you.
That's right. In your world, it is the future. Today, we're on Tuesday, you're on Wednesday, right?
That's right. Well, I'm in the future. Isn't it trippy? Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
So kind of introduce yourself, Katya, and kind of tell folks kind of a little bit about your background, your story, kind of where the path from where you were to kind of how you are now serving with yoga, among other things, and kind of your journey to kind of where you are now, and let folks know who you are.
All right. So I'm a psychotherapist. I work very holistically, and I'm also an author and mystic. And I'm at heart a yoga teacher, even though I don't really teach yoga classes anymore. But yoga is my core path, classical yoga, with yoga philosophy and psychology and all the rest, not just the postures, as we sometimes know it in the West. And my story has been, it started off with a life where I felt very disconnected. I felt very angry about what I was perceiving from the world. People were selfish, people were self-absorbed, they didn't care about anyone else, they were mean. This was my perception. Even as a child, I was feeling so disconnected and disheartened. I came from a very strict family that prioritized career and and I didn't feel much affection or human connection except from my dad. Just to make things worse, then my dad was away for long periods of time for work, sometimes weeks at a time. And so I felt like the person who could really give me affection would just vanish, from the perspective of a child. It was that love and loss, and also that the lack of freedom, because it was a very controlled environment. Yeah, my mom was a school teacher and my dad was in the military. So it was a harsh environment in some ways, though I had all the material needs I needed. But I grew up very angry, and I didn't have any kind of spiritual framework to help me through anything, any understanding of this is all part of a bigger picture and things are going to be all right. These are just some learnings that you're going through to grow and become a better person ultimately. So I just went down a rabbit hole of the wrong relationships, ultimately I felt so disconnected that I started using coping mechanisms like alcohol just to try and survive that period where I felt so powerless and so helpless to change my reality. But while all of this was happening, I had a thought in mind, like one day I will have my own family and I will create an environment that's very connected and loving and free, and this will all be all right then. I put all the eggs in that basket. And when I was around 27, kind of age, Saturn return kind of age for those that know astrology. It's a very important age in people's lives because, big transformations happen. And I got pregnant, and that meant the world to me. And that's, my life was then going to change and become everything I ever wanted it to be, and it would all be worth it. And I lost that child. I had a miscarriage, and that was the loss of the my whole dream and my everything that I kind of thought would make things right just vanished in that moment. And it was the crumbling of all the beliefs and all the hope that I had in the universe, which wasn't very much. And it was like burned to the ground. There was just ashes after that, and I was inconsolable. And at that moment, that's when things started to shift, and yoga came into my life. It didn't come before then, and it came then. It's that thing of when the student is ready, the teacher will come, you know? And I guess I needed to really hit rock bottom. And I did. And when I did, yoga came into my life. And not the postures. I actually went into that yoga school just out of curiosity to see what was it about. And I remember still it was a course called The Art of Sacred Love. And I thought, let's see what this is about. And then they started talking about the chakras and the universe and how all the laws of the universe and how everything fits together, the philosophies and psychologies, and how our body relates to our mind and our spirit, our energy, our emotions, how it all fits together, the environment around us. And I was just so blown away by what I was hearing. This was just a morning, you know, and I knew that would change my life. I didn't know exactly how, but I knew that it would change my life. So I started studying in that school. And then we went through a journey of going through the chakras, and the chakras are, I don't know if everyone's familiar with that term, but they're the centers of energy of our being, and each chakra relates to particular emotions, particular parts of the body, particular trends of our mind, and our spirit. So it's quite central to our functioning as human beings. So if you have for example, let's talk about the how that progressed for me. The first couple of months we talked about the first chakra, the base chakra, and that's very much about safety and security. That like we have the grounding and the stability to achieve things in life, and it's also related to vitality. So those aspects, and as I started learning about those, I realized I feel completely disconnected from my body. I live pretty much in the mind. I feel disconnected from the environment around me, from nature. I have very little sense of grounding in the land and the environment. And I had body symptoms that showed me that. So I had an autoimmune condition, a pretty serious one that I had for many years. And that autoimmune condition I later discovered when I became a psychotherapist and started studying psychosomatic diseases and conditions. These are conditions that are emotional, but they express through the body. And I realized that our immune system is what protects our physical body. Know that. But what is not such common knowledge is that it symbolically, it also represents how safe we feel in the world, how protected we feel in the world. So if we don't feel protected and safe in the world, our immune system will give us random diseases, as if it were being attacked, but it's obviously not being attacked. The disease I had was like as if I was being attacked by 100 mosquitoes at any given time. It was itchy, it was swollen, it was horrific, and this went on for many years. And the best doctors in the world, which I went to specifically, traveled, just said there is no cure for this. You just cannot do anything about it. We can give you some medication to treat the symptoms, and the medication kind of your body gets used to it, so it stops working after a few weeks. So then you have to change medication, and that's what you'll do for ever, and I was like, wow, okay, let's see what happens. And I went through my own healing process and understanding all these things, how the mind is actually impacting our body and influencing it all the time. And I realized I feel unsafe in the world. I feel highly unsafe, and this is why my immune system is saying something. It doesn't have words, obviously, it has symptoms. And so I went through that journey of how can I feel safe in the world, and what are the behaviors that I have that are keeping me unsafe in the world. And so that meant things like lack of boundaries, always feeling like I have to say yes to things, that I have to please people and go with what they want. So I had to go and analyze myself, all the things that were keeping me unsafe, especially in relationships, and address those. And when I started to feel safe in the world, that disease just vanished. No more medication, anything. So it's just an example of how I deeply feel like everything is connected, and yoga was taking me through that process of the chakras one by one, because then each chakra relates to its own emotional patterns, mental patterns. And as I was analyzing them, this was having an impact in my body. For example, still on that first chakra, it relates to the sense of smell. So each chakra relates to one of the senses. My sense of smell actually improved. I had very little sense of smell, and suddenly I had almost a super smell, and just I used to have kidney problems, just issues that my kidneys didn't really work very well, which is also related to that first chakra. I haven't had kidney problems for more than probably a couple of decades now. So yeah, and that was just the first couple of months, the first chakra, and then we went through the other chakras. I've actually even written a book about this kind of journey that I went through. It's called Echoes of the Timeless, and it goes through that journey. For each chakra, there was so many realizations, so many teachings, and parts of me that were confronting to be faced with. Ways in which I was betraying myself, that I wasn't listening, that I was toxic environments, toxic relationships, and all the rest. And yeah, I had to face them one by one as we went through this journey. And it changed everything about my life. And later on, I was very impressed with all this. And I decided I want to become a yoga teacher and share this with people. I started sharing it with people, and I realized the same is happening for my students. They're going through these changes in themselves. So for me, that's almost like a science, it's repeatable. Like you can do those practices and see the same results in the people. Yeah, I became a yoga teacher for many years. And then I realized that's just not enough. I want to be able to share this with people, and people who are struggling in life. And people who are struggling are often not looking for a yoga teacher. They're looking for a psychotherapist or, any form of therapist. So I changed my career, I gave it all up. I had a good career in IT before. I started from scratch and studied to become a psychotherapist, and here I am now. Sorry, it was been a long story, but that's how I ended up where I did.
So it's interesting, and it's funny when Cathy and I first started this podcast, we thought we kind of had a direction we were going to go. And one of the many things that we've kind of discovered along the way, and Cathy's probably more familiar with this, but being a clinician, was just just how much childhood events get carried forward in some way, shape, or form. And along with that, at least for me, I've kind of discovered, not having any clinical background, um, anxieties and traumas in our life sit within our our physical body. So those two things, as you're telling your story, I'm thinking, not only am I kind of reflecting on my own personal story, but I'm thinking about how the whatever events we bring with us from our childhood that we don't have the tools as when we're younger to process, and how because of that they then can manifest themselves, like with you, in a physiological way. And it wasn't until you kind of discovered yoga that you kind of unwrapped the chakras, and how and why they were connected, and kind of sorted that out, which that's just I know Cathy's got some with her massage therapist, Colin Perry, who we've had on a couple times. Cathy's getting more and more familiar with chakras, and the importance and what they all mean.
Well, it's just fascinating to me to listen to your story because I'm sure that there are so many people out there that have a similar experience. You just probably described how a lot of people either have felt for a moment in time, or in general that's how they feel. And I think that that can be so discouraging to feel that way, to feel disappointed or discouraged with the universe, and searching for a way to fix it and not feeling like you can or can fix your own life. And then that turns into feeling a bit just complex and unsafe as you've defined it. But I think it's really a whole new set of self care tools that we really haven't explored a whole lot on our podcast about self awareness. I mean, you're taking yoga, which people are familiar with yoga. I'm not saying everybody does yoga, but they understand what yoga is for the most part. But I like how.
But not to interrupt you, Kathy, but do they really? Because even as someone who was, I was a former personal trainer, and like I had what I thought yoga was, but as Vance has come on and talked about it, and now Katya, it's more, for lack of a better term, it's more personal and much more internal than I ever thought it was,
Yeah.
or at least can be or should be, and that's eye opening to me. And again, I have a personal training background.
Well, when you say this, Jay, in our American culture, I'm making a judgment here. I would say at times we can generalize yoga and forms of self care as yoga as sort of some hocus pocus sometimes, don't you think? Like in our culture, I
Yeah,
don't know
and I
about
think a lot of people, at least here in the states, probably do.
like if you're talking about chakras, are like, oh boy, we're just reading the tea leaves. But it really takes a mature and self-aware person to take a step back and say, okay, all these things are not working. Whatever I'm doing is not working. I'm on the highway to disaster. So how do I take a step back? And whatever the method is, whether it's yoga or meditation, whatever it is, it's really a journey with yourself and how you're responding, how you're reacting, how to pivot that so that you can show up as a self-regulated person and that you can handle all the things life's giving you, because all at the end of the day, all we can handle is ourselves and how we react. And then hopefully if we're reacting better, then the relationships are better and then we're all better. That was
Yeah. And yoga can be seen as some people see it as just exercise and stretches, and some people will see it as woo-woo stuff like the tea leaf situation. But and me, I'm a bit like that as well. If I don't see something working, if I don't have proof that something works, I don't really believe in it. And this was the thing that caught me about yoga, was that they told me, you don't need to believe in anything. Do the practices and see the results for yourself. And I'll just give you another example, and you'll tell me, how can you say this isn't true, So let's go to the second chakra. The second chakra is about social connections, interactions, and sensuality, sexuality. It's the element of the water, so we go with the flow, with what's pleasurable, we're adaptable, that kind of thing. Or the opposite, like if it's blocked, then we're very rigid and have social anxiety, or social skills are impaired, or we have sexual issues, or we're not connected to our sensuality. And so as I started to learn about this chakra, the teacher told us, the class, when he was a student, his teacher told him that when we started activating that chakra, we become highly social. There's something about us that starts attracting this energy of people being drawn to us. And so people start kind of being drawn to you, reaching out to you, talking to you out of the blue, and you won't even see it coming. And this is what my teacher said. And I'm like, okay, I'll keep that in the back of my mind. I don't really believe it, but let's see what happens. And sure enough, people from my life from ages ago, from almost my childhood, would get in touch. Random people in the supermarket would make conversation and tell me all about their lives. All these things, people were just drawn to me in a way that's unexplainable. And the other part of it, I am Santa Claus. When we vibrate certain energies, we attract similar energies onto ourselves. This is a very widely known rule and accepted rule in yoga, the rule of the law of the universe, let's say. We attract similar energies. And the healing aspect of it. This chakra is also related to healing, but also it has its own organs. And having experienced some sexual trauma in my life, I had endometriosis. And a lot of, if you have women in the audience, perhaps many of them might be able to relate to this because it's widespread endometriosis these days. And there's a strong link with endometriosis and sexual abuse. And just toxic relationship with the masculine, where there's some fear there. And so our internal flow of the womb, instead of being inwards and yin, as we call it in yoga, and holding cells of the womb inside, it becomes outwards because we want to kick it out. We don't want to be vulnerable and exposed. We want to be emissive or yang, and we want those cells out. And so those cells start spreading through our ovaries or the walls of outside walls of the womb, and they create endometriosis. And and I had a 3 centimeter cyst like attached to my right ovary. You know, that's pretty substantial. Some people have even bigger. But I had a 3 centimeter cyst, and I went to a conventional doctor, and she told me, okay, here's some medication for that. I'm like, oh, great. So will this cure the cyst? No, no, this doesn't cure anything. It just prevents more symptoms. And I was like, oh, okay. And now how long would I take it for? Oh, you have to take it for the rest of your life. So in the end, I didn't even look at that prescription. I'm like, no. But by then I was in yoga for a while. I'm like, that is not going to be the way. So I started working on the second chakra, which relates to those energies of, those organs of the uterus and the ovaries, etc. And a few months later, there's no cyst. Like they looked for it with the scan and everything. Cyst is gone. So, yeah. How can how is this woo woo? It's strange. It's mysterious for sure. But how can I deny that this was true? I have the scans.
That's
So
so interesting, Katya. You talked about how this chakra being kind of the social chakra, and you were talking about how you were having experiences where you were drawing people socially without even having that intention. And I and although I've never done yoga myself, I've kind of come into a point in my life where I'm kind of that way. I used to be, because of my childhood traumas. I was very self-isolating, anti-social, was very much a loner, up until well into my adulthood, and at times can still be that way. But I have found, having found more peace inward, that that part of me is now more open. Not that I'm the Mr. Social Butterfly by any means, but that's kind of been, that energy is kind of like out there. I'm familiar with the possibility of it, at least, at this time. So I'm going to have to really, I have to like do some research on yoga, because it's, the things that Vance Rowe told us, Cathy, when he came on, and now Cathy with you with talking about. And I love how you've kind of, well, both of you in different with different stories have kind of took some difficulties in life, and kind of through yoga have kind of found self, um,
yeah.
and kind of have discovered some things that way. So it's just the energy is really
Another is
fascinating.
Jay. Another guest we had was Courtney
Yes.
Fort, who
Yep.
same. She would say that yoga changed her.
Hmm.
I would
You know
have to
what?
say, Cathy, that yoga is probably, although there's still probably some stigmas here in the United States, it's much more.
Yeah.
There are more and more people getting into yoga. It's kind of more mainstream now than it's ever been, and that's probably true with,
And women probably accept it a bit more than men.
yes. That's probably true of a lot of the meditation, sound therapy, a lot of the acupuncture, a lot of those things that we've talked about on the podcast are becoming more. They're not as questioned as much. It's still a little bit of a stigma out there, but they're kind of turning the corner a little bit.
You know what else I like about what you had to say that I think is hopeful? And I'm not knocking medication. I'm not, because I understand that medication is important for certain things, and it's very important to a lot of people. But what I love is that you decide it for yourself. Like, wow. I mean, I'm somebody that had a cyst on an ovary and had that ovary removed later. I mean, I've had children, and I'm old at this point, but so I could spare losing an ovary. But that was the course of treatment that happened for me. I didn't really think about, was there another way? I just did it, right? Because that was the doctor's recommendation. But I really respect the fact that you paused and you're like, I don't know if I want to be on this particular medication for the rest of my life. I want to try it a different way. And how incredible that that was not detected anymore based on, here's a little different way to treat this, or you're choosing to treat that. I don't know. I just love when there's different choices for people instead of always being a medication.
That's so true. And a big part of the issue is, as you say, that people aren't aware of the choices. People are severely disempowered, and I think the West is really stimulating that disempowerment, like telling us that our bodies, they don't know what they're doing, they're a bit dumb, and medication knows best, and doctors know best. Again, I also have nothing against medication, and there's a place for it, but it's not to replace the inner work. And our body, for me and my perception, has infinite wisdom, much more wisdom than our mind, because our mind is like that tip of the iceberg situation where we can only access consciously the very top of it, but there's much more underneath, and that part is subconscious. But that part has so much wisdom. The wisdom of our soul is there, the wisdom of our deep emotions are there, is there, and it's constantly showing us things through our body. And when we suppress that through medication or through alcohol, through anything, we no longer have access to that source of wisdom, which it dampens it.
I'll give you another example. Like today, I had a massage before I came here. I've been here all day. When I came back for the podcast, when I came back to work, and I do a massage once a month. So my massage therapist, Colin Perry, she does a lot of lymphatic drainage, and she did some on my midsection today. I don't even think we've ever done that before. That was quite interesting to me. Anyway, and then I was coming back to work and I was sharing with some of my coworkers about that experience, and then they're like, well, where does the lymphatic drainage go? And I'm like, I think in the bloodstream. I don't know if I have a good explanation right now. So then I looked up the whole thing, and I thought, what an incredible thing our body is. Like the lymph nodes are filtering and holding those toxins, and then I guess ideally pushing it into the bloodstream. Sometimes we need to help it because it's stuck, right? I guess that's the lymphatic drain. And then it goes to our kidneys and our liver to further process, and then, it's gone through our body's ways, through sweat or going to the bathroom. But I thought, what an incredible machine our body is to do that kind of work. But we've also got to do the work to get our body to do the work, right? We've got to recognize all the stress and toxins and whatever. And if it's all clogged up in our system, how to find ways, whether it's yogurt. Yeah, yogurt too. Yogurt, yoga, lymphatic drain, whatever the mechanism is to get rid of all the junk.
That's so true, and I give that example in my book. Can't remember this exactly by heart, but it's something like we have 40 trillion cells, something ridiculous like that in our body, powering intensely complex systems like the respiratory system, the digestive, the autoimmune system, like all of that. Each cell knows what to do, and they're all doing this incredible work all the time. How do we think that our body is stupid and it's just throwing useless symptoms? It makes no sense. And the body can be, well, we can think that, or we can consider the body as a tool. And from a yoga perspective, and even psychotherapy perspective, the body can be a super useful tool. Even just if we breathe slowly and deeply for a few times, and sometimes we chant in yoga, we would do this mantra, like even if you just say that for however long your breath lasts, 50 seconds is what comes
Humming
to mind.
kind of thing that
Yeah, you see how you feel at the end of that minute is not how you felt at the beginning of it. It's so powerful. And my dissertation for my psychotherapy degree was actually on this. It was research on how yoga postures affect our chakras, what kind of postures will balance each chakra, and what emotions relate to that chakra and what organs. So I did that research to understand if you have a blockage let's say let's go with the third chakra, because we've done the first two. So the third chakra, Manipura, is related to the element of fire, and it relates to digestion and the liver, and it relates to the emotions of healthy self-esteem, willpower, determination, and if it's not balanced, then it will relate to anger and pride, or pushing yourself down, like I'm no one, the opposite sides of this spectrum. And this is it's so real. I had a client once who told me, Katya, I felt so angry today. Just out of the blue, nothing happened. And I'm like, nothing happened? Oh, nothing was happening. I was just at the gym and nothing happened. I'm like, wow, okay, what were you doing at the gym? And she said, I was doing this kind of rotation of the belly, rotating like kind of the chest, one side and the other, like warming up, and I was doing this these twists, basically abdominal twists, just that. And suddenly I started becoming so angry, and I thought to myself, yes, of course, because the third chakra relates to anger if it's not balanced. That the twists, abdominal twists, are one of the things that activates the third chakra. So if you really activate the third chakra, but it's really imbalanced, then you will feel the negative aspects of it, which is a whole lot of anger that comes out of the blue. So for me, this is so clear.
Watch
And
the twists.
What's your twists? And it's just a simple example. And if you don't know this reality, if you don't know what's behind reality and life and the body and the soul and all of that, then you might just be really puzzled by life. But if you know it, then you're resourced and you're empowered to actually change things.
So I find it so interesting that, at least from my personal journey, kind of the more internal I have looked and the more self I have focused on, the more at peace I've gotten. But it's as I'm hearing you talk, Kathy, it's very apparent to me that there's so much more going on with any of us
Mm.
internally, and I don't mean physically internally. I just mean the whole of ourself. And whether you want to describe it as your soul, energy, whatever it is, there's the unseen that we should realize is there. But there's just so much more going on within the self, not just the body of self, but the whole self. If that makes any sense. It's just so fascinating to me. So something I wanted to talk about, switching gears a little bit, Katya, was I'm very curious as to how, like, self-care, wellness, mental health is kind of how it's kind of perceived in New Zealand. Are there stigmas? Are there things that are very popular in the self-care world over there? What's your what are your thoughts on, like, how things are in the self-care and wellness world in New Zealand generally?
Well, it has a lot of Western influence, so it's still very much a reactive system. So you wouldn't be very proactive about your health. It's more like, okay, I have a disease now, I'm going to treat it, I'm going to go to the doctor. So it's still pretty conventional. That said, it's starting to open up a little bit. So, for instance, I worked for Auckland Hospital in a psychosomatic team that accepted that people's physical conditions are not necessarily just physical, and they have to do with our traumas and our emotions and all that. And so there was already that. But that said, we were considered kind of woo-woo by a lot of the doctors in the hospital. So there's kind of an intention to be a bit more holistic, I think. And because it's a bicultural country, I guess maybe not everyone knows this, but it's partially English, I guess, and partially Maori, the indigenous people of New Zealand. And so Maori bring a whole other set of dimensions of health that are not necessarily recognized in the West. So, for example, the influence of land and nature in our well-being, the influence of our environment. So, for example, if you live in a city, it's easy to just leak energy, to be drained by all the sounds, all the smells, all the energies of other people around. And that's a major energy leak, versus if you live on an island in New Zealand like me, it's very it's a very nourishing environment, that sustains itself. It sustains me. I don't need to particularly do much more. So that's one dimension. Another dimension is what they call whānau, meaning the family and community around us. It's recognized that we should have a reciprocal relationship with the community around us, where we have a place and we have a role, and there's things that we provide, and in return, not even in return, but just in reciprocity, the community also looks after us. So we're not isolated in a nuclear family kind of thing, don't even know our neighbors, but it's more of a collective. We're in a collective, and that's more recognized as a part of health. So, and also the connection with our ancestors, the lineage is recognized. The strength of our ancestors, the spirit of our ancestors, how does that support us? How does that empower us? And spirit is also recognized in Maori tradition. And I guess there is the influence of that in the healthcare system, but again, a very limited influence. I guess it would be ideal if it was an equal influence between Western and Maori, but it's not realistically. So yeah, the recognition that we have a spirit, we have a soul path, we have something deeper in us that if we're disconnected from, then that is not conducive to well-being. So see, these areas that are recognized as having an impact, but you don't really see too much of that in the healthcare system, really. But there's a flavor of it.
Now, is mental health kind of stigmatized or not talked about there like it is here?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a bit of that. I think it's improving. I
Yeah,
think
same
it's
here.
not. Yeah. I think, but still, some of my clients would probably not admit to having a psychotherapist unless they get really excited about therapy, and then they'll tell everyone. But yeah, there's still a bit of stigma around it, unfortunately.
I'm really curious the name of your book. You may have said it, but
Yeah. It's an award-winning book.
True. Yes, yes. It has just won the Independent Press Award 2026 for visionary fiction. So yeah, it's called Echoes of the Timeless, and it's on Amazon and all the things, and it's also in Audible as an audiobook.
Echoes
Yeah,
of the Timeless.
yeah. That's
And you
a
discuss all of the chakra.
Yes, it's fiction, so it's like a narrative, like a journey, so of personal experience, and but yeah, it does go through the chakras and the different emotions and realizations that can be felt along that journey, and it's a journey of healing, of awakening, of going through different countries, different traditions, so not even just yoga. There's you know traveling with shamans in Peru and trekking the Himalayas. There's different settings, that different lands that bring different teachings. So yeah, story.
Well, congratulations on your designation, right, of your 2026 award.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, that was unexpected.
So how long did that take to write?
Well, the writing process itself was quick, was just about a month. It
Wow.
was a huge download, huge
Yeah.
download. I was just trying to keep up with what was coming through. It was even like my mind wasn't even almost engaged in it. It was just trying, I was just trying to write everything that was coming through it as if it was coming through something bigger than me. And every day I would just write and write from morning to night. And I would go to sleep thinking, okay, well, that must be it then. Surely I've got nothing else to say. This was very cool, but all right, that must be it. And the next morning I would just wake up, huge download again, trying to keep up again until the evening. And then I would think, okay, now that's it, surely. And this went on for a month. And then after that month, the book was written. And then I went to through many revisions to actually try and make it in proper English. And also, I'm not a native speaker, so it took maybe like 10 revisions to get it to sound reasonable. Yeah, that's the story.
Now, it's funny you were talking about kind of some of the New Zealand culture. Cathy, I know you've not seen Lord of the Rings. Have you ever seen the Lord of the Rings movies, Katya?
Of course.
Well,
You
they're
have
from
not seen the Lord of the Rings. How could you not see the Lord of the Rings?
I think that I hear that a lot. It's probably something I pay some attention to.
well, it was, and it. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Once I learned that, I was like, wow, just and you look on a map, and Australia and New Zealand are kind of right next to each other, but the accents are similar. Yet they're
Mm.
so like the people are so different. Although they're I'm thinking about that, and we could probably say that about U.S. and Canada, where on the surface you would think we're pretty much the same. One just is colder than the other one, but really they're cultural differences,
Mm.
and we're yeah. So yeah, every time when someone brings up the New Zealand as a country, the first thing I think of is Lord of the Rings and the visuals. Peter Jackson. Now, is Peter Jackson from New Zealand? The director?
I don't know, actually. Yeah.
He's either from New Zealand or Australia, one or the other. But anyway, just absolutely gorgeous.
And
Most
that
of the
makes
movie is
sense.
actually
I think
yeah.
New Zealand got known because of the Lord of the Rings. I'm joking
Well,
about it, but I really think that that's what put New Zealand on the map.
yeah. So speaking of movies and such, we'll do a little quick change of pace here and do a little music slash movie trivia. Now, Katya, did you come up with a question or no?
With a question?
You don't have one, that's okay.
No.
You can answer ours if you don't have one. That's all right.
But I'd like to ask a question. What can I ask about?
Music or movies, either one. And you can ask
Okay.
anything. It can be hard, easy, it doesn't matter.
What was the song that most touched you?
That most touched me. Ooh, there's been so many. God, there's hundreds of them.
Movie or show?
I tell you, there's a song, and I meant to bring this up last week when we were talking about what we've been watching lately. Is there's a brand new artist. Her name is Sienna Spiro, and she just performed on the Jimmy Fallon show, and she's got a song called oh gosh, Kathy, I sent it to you. I can't remember what it is, but anyway, it is. Oh, now I gotta. What is Sienna Spiro's new song called? Die on This Hill. It's called Die on This Hill. And I've never, Kathy, you know how I am with music,
Yeah.
and I've listened. I'm old like you are, even older. And I've heard a lot of music in my day. And I got to tell you, this girl's voice, she's 20 years old. She's from the UK. I've never heard anyone sing with so much pain and conviction and feeling in her voice. Just fantastic. Like Jimmy Fallon was blown away. The crowd gave her a standing ovation. You get a chance, Kathy, listen to I sent it to you. Listen to that link. Yeah, that one. That's because it's fresh. Like it's brand new in my mind. So it's yeah. That's I'd have to say that would be my answer.
What about you, Cathy?
That would probably change all the time for me.
It's probably a
Mm.
Rick Springfield song.
Well, you know what you're going to laugh, but what I'm listening to some right now was because I was really, still am a big Stranger Things fan. So you watch Stranger Things? And my kids have gotten me listening to Joe Keery, that played Steve Harrington, to his music, which is different, right? But I guess it's becoming more popular since that show is over. So I've been interested in that, in some of his songs, and because I'm not always, sometimes when it's a different kind of a music genre, maybe I'm like, I don't know about that, but I really have enjoyed listening to some of his music recently.
It's funny you say that, Kathy, because that's part of my trivia question.
Oh boy.
Let me go first since you brought it up. I'll go first this time because it's a two-part question.
Okay.
Part one is what is the current number one song on the Billboard charts? That's part one. Part two is what is the most streamed song on Spotify right now? They're two different answers,
It is too. Okay.
but I'll just tell you this: Joe Keery, he's called Djo. It's
Well, but my kids say that's not accurate. That's how
that,
it looks. But they said it's just Joe. The D is silent.
oh yeah, yeah, okay. But his song, what's it called? End to beginning or
End of
beginning?
beginning.
Yep, that's the number one Spotify streaming song right now on Spotify.
Because there's this meme that says a picture of him. It says he, beat the Demigorgons and beat Vecna and dethroned Taylor Swift.
Well, it's funny. The guy that plays Jonathan is also a musician, and he is on the album He plays on the album with him on
I
his
didn't know
album.
that. I know he
And
references him in a song.
they did an interview, and it's him and Jonathan and what's her name? Jonathan's girlfriend on the show,
Oh, Nancy.
Nancy. Well,
Natalie
she plays
Jordan.
piano, so they, the three
I
of
didn't know
them, when they were between filming, they would go to wherever they were staying and do music together. The three of
That's
them.
really cool. They're just
So,
creative people, all of them. So
so
what
that
was the other? I don't know what the
well,
other
okay. So what's the current number one song on the
is.
Billboard charts?
And beginning.
It's a different song. Joe Carey's got the Spotify number one
Okay.
streaming, but this one you'll probably know who it is, maybe not which song.
I have no idea.
It's Taylor Swift.
That Ophelia, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not as Swifty as you can say. I was kind of like
I'm not really the Fate of Ophelia,
sarcastic.
and it just became number one last week, so it's brand new. It's the first week for number one, but it's interesting how they're two different. And she's not even on the Spotify charts at all. Taylor
I'm just
Swift.
fascinated how this show has affected so many things, as far as bringing old music back and how everything influences things today, whether it's somebody playing, you know, I think a month ago it was people playing a Billy Joel song and a Stevie Nicks song on TikTok that shoved those songs up to high streaming. You just don't know.
Well, it's funny, Kathy. I was watching my show that I like called Tell Me Lies, and I could swore I heard Kate Bush in the background. No words, just the music.
Right.
I'm like, huh. Somebody else picked up on the Kate Bush phenomenon.
All right. You want a trivia?
Yep, go ahead. What's your question? Go ahead.
All right. This is what I learned. January is often considered a dump month, DUMP, a dump month for films. So some films that didn't make it through the holiday season, they released them in January. So I looked up what is the highest grossing January domestic, meaning United States, blockbuster to date at 90 mil. And we can do this a couple ways, Jay. So the top three, the years are 2010, 2015, and 2016. That's where that lands. Or I could just give you three, and you can tell me.
I would have I can't.
All right, ready?
I don't have. I'm not good at like what year movies came out.
So I'm going to give you the top three, and you can guess which one would have been number one. Star Wars: Force Awakens, Avatar, the first one, I guess, or American Sniper.
Well, Avatar's number one because it's the most grossing ever in the world. So
What
it's
do you
got to be
think?
number one. What's that?
So what does our guest think? Which one?
I guess I couldn't do trivia to save my life, but I would say Avatar.
So it isn't. It's Star Wars, but just for January.
Just for January. Okay.
January, of course.
So it was Star Wars: Force Awakens in 2016, and then it was American Sniper, and then third was Avatar. Now, obviously, we know Avatar ended up overall.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting about January, just a January thing. There you go.
So
I did not know
perfect segue. Speaking of Avatar, so Katya, you've seen the newest Avatar movie.
Yes, indeed. Yes. I don't think I had ever cried that much in a movie.
Really?
Well, that's what happens
Really?
with Stranger Things. Holly. I did not have the same response.
No? What was your response?
So let me say this first. I like Avatar, but I'm not like a super fan. I go because my kids want to go. So
Kathy's got four sons,
yeah,
18 to 27, so she gets drug along.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it doesn't always work in reverse. But anyway, I think my response, I'm curious of what had you crying in it. I want to see how cold I am.
Yeah, but you blubbered at Stranger Things.
I know. I like dumped paper towels of tears.
I guess it touches on things that are really dear to my heart. So, for instance, it has the theme of help will come when you need it. And this is something I don't find in the world very much. I found that in my life. So, for example, I've been in physically abusive relationships, and like I've tried to tell people, but no one really came to help me. And I had this theme of look at me, like just see my suffering and come help me. Anyone help me. Personally, I didn't feel like I received that help very much for a very long time, or most of my life. And I feel like maybe even the profession I'm in right now as a psychotherapist is designed to help people, to be that person that I haven't had. And that movie is just so touching in that respect with someone stands up for their values and they'll put themselves in a dangerous situation because it's the right thing to do, willing to lose everything in that moment because uh, their life doesn't matter. What matters is to stand up for what's right. And they do that knowing that they will die in that moment, but then help comes and they don't die. This is so touching for me. And the theme of ancestors and tribal medicines and, like the how the earth is alive and sacred and plays a role in helping us and healing us and will come to our our help if in many ways. I don't know, I just thought it was really touching, all of that.
So now that we all realize that I'm cold and insensitive and haven't dug deep into my emotions. But this is the thing. I love that I had one approach to it, which was, and then you had a different approach to it. But that's why Jay and I talk about movies and streaming as a form of self care, because this is exactly the point right here. You and I both saw the same movie and had different reactions to it. And that's the whole point of this, is that there's, all movies and streaming are different. There's different points, but Jay may watch something where he's like, God, that really got to me. It made me think of X, Y, and Z. Or I may have watched, I keep using Stranger Things. So it probably connected me to a time where it was hard for me to say goodbye to, and I relived it through that show and that music. But this is the whole point. It's connection. It's us relating to past, present, future. It's making us think, and it's bringing emotions out and reactions out in us. And that is the whole point of why we think it's so important to talk about.
But you both, in different ways, it was self care for both of you. Kathy, you were entertained for 2 hours, and
Three.
there's value in that. Your mind was away from the stresses for 2 hours, even if it was just a distraction. There's value there. And Katya, you connected and self reflected. And I tell you what, when I am moved emotionally by whatever it is, TV or movies or streaming, it's because, like you said, it's I've not experienced this wonderful thing that I'm watching, or I wish I had felt that, or I wish the world was more like that. Like with
You say
Ripple,
that a lot.
yes, with Ripple, the show Ripple. And I'm like, these relationships with these people, yes, they're sad things, but how they get connected is wonderful. We don't see that. I want the world to be that, and I connect to that because I didn't have those things. So I'm like, yes, it exists. I feel hope for the little bit of time that I'm watching. So yes, you know,
You need to go back and do her chakra work and see how you.
so it was funny when Kathy talked about Stranger Things. It was the other way around. Normally, I'm the one who connects emotionally to a lot of things. I mean, there are times when I watch something, I'm like, oh, that's okay, and I'm entertained. But I get more emotionally connected more often than Kathy does. So when the Stranger Things thing happened, she kind of really like she made up for all the lack of emotion on all the other stuff that she did. And she's good. She's caught up.
It's funny though, because we're knocking on the door of 100 episodes, which means we've talked about movies and streaming 100 times, right? I'm finding I didn't really think about it. I just watched something, or I'd go to the movies, or I'd watch something on TV, and I would, like you said, be entertained. Now I find myself, probably because we talk about it all the time, weekly, is now I am connecting to the emotions of how something affects me. And the second thing I'm doing is I'm becoming quite the critic, where I'll be like, yeah, that was terrible acting. Oh, that was amazing acting. I'm starting to bring the Jay Watson to the air, and I'm like, what is happening to me? But yeah.
It's interesting, Kathy. On next week's show, we have our high school friend and Hollywood producer Chris Moore is going to come on and talk about the self care and movies connection and how if Netflix buys Warner Brothers, how that's going to affect movie theaters because movie theaters here in the United States are dwindling. It's kind of going away. It's in danger, to be quite honest with you. There are fewer and fewer people that are going to the movie theaters than there ever have been, and it's at a crossroads. And
Jay, did you
yes,
see the clip? I had Joe Rogan with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and they were talking about how different it is to write for streaming than it is for movies. I thought that
how they have to talk about the plot throughout the show because they figure people are going to be on their phones and not
people
paying
are
attention.
so
Yeah.
distracted. I thought that's going to make you absolutely nuts if you see that.
Hmm.
Our friend Chris Moore, who's going to be on next week, is friends with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They did a movie together years ago, Good Will Hunting. Yeah, so yeah, I can't wait to talk to Chris and really dive into this self care and movies thing like we always do. And yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting that you should mention that, Jay, because I feel like I really agree with that. And I think that self care can be seen as a state of mind, not necessarily something that you do, but an approach you have to life.
it's both. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They go together. And I can see how movies would be a way to bring self care in. So, and even I could extend that to the way that we define in my tradition, we define yoga slash tantra, which is the more specific lineage. We define it as the science of awakening through every circumstance in life. So it's like using, for example, this movie, you can just look at it, with your brain off, or you can look at it and reflect on, what's meaningful to you, what can that add to your life, how does that represent what you want, that you can see anything in life as a way to look after yourself better, connect with yourself better, understand life better. And for me, that's self-care. All of this work that we're talking about with the chakras is self-care, because ultimately it will lead you into a more peaceful, fulfilling, joyful life. So what else is self care?
Wow.
I like to define self care in two categories. There is those things directly that build, strengthen, and nourish our mind, body, and soul. Whether it's you go to the gym for exercise, you go to church for your soul, you go to a therapist for your mind. And then there's the what I call the mindset shifters, the things that you just enjoy doing, and even if it's just a distraction for 10 minutes or whatever it is, or it's pottery or gardening or going to the movies. It's taking you, even at a bare minimum, it's taking you away from whether it's work stresses or personal stresses. And I tell you, I really discovered it several years ago. I was going through a difficult breakup, and I decided I was going to start going to the movies every Friday night, and I pretty much maintained that for the most part until here recently. It was just a distraction at first. I'm like, I just want to get out of the house, take my mind off things, and go to the movies. Well, I started discovering that as I was driving to the theater, I could feel my body like relax physically, like a big giant exhale. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then as I've gone down this, my healing journey and discovering through the podcast and through talking to different people and just becoming more self aware, the whole self care in general, how everybody's is a little bit different. And movies for Kathy and I, and a lot of people, is that thing for me. So it just kind of made sense to kind of, it can be, sure, I'll go to a movie and, you know, it's kind of so, and I was entertained for 2 hours, but my mind shifted. I wasn't thinking about work anymore for 2 hours. So it served its purpose that way. And then there's the ones like the show Ripple for me, where it's like I self reflect and it impacts me, and I think and I learn and it's not like I leave the theater and the movie goes away. Like for days I'm still thinking Ripple, when I see previews or whatever. So I think there's kind of, and they both have their purpose. There's two kind of categories for self care. There's the direct and specific, the kind of focused things, and then there's the okay, what are the things that I do reading? Like I said, different things. It's a million different things. I can take my mind to a away from the unpeaceful towards the peaceful, or just as a distraction at the very least. And both kind of serve a purpose. And it's all
Yeah,
about self,
definitely.
all of the self. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And doing those things that calm the nervous system, because you're really present, right, in that moment where you're, doing pottery or drawing or whatever you're doing, you're really present. Nothing else is happening in that moment, and that's really having a huge impact on the nervous system. And that will set the scene for, anything that's to come. It's essential to have a calm nervous system because everything else also
So
relies on that.
we're all the way across the world, but we're all in the same playground.
Page.
Although our journeys will all kind of have their own footprint because we're all going to have different circumstances and approaches to how we get to a peaceful place. That's kind of ultimately what we all are kind of striving for, or at least should be, is that internal
Self-regulate.
peace and happiness and fulfillment from inside. I like to say, live your life inside out. Yeah. So
And I like
anyway,
your word neutral. Jay always he has the best non-clinical term that we just all try to get to neutral.
yeah, if you're in a bad way, you can't go from 0 to 10 right away. So my thing has always been kind of my tool is I can't see ultimate happiness from where I am. If I'm in a bad place, I can't. Happiness is so far away from what I can do in the moment, but I can see neutral. I can see where some of my anxiety symptoms go away. I can get to there. I have steps that can get me to neutral. Then I can kind of regroup, kind of take a pause, and now I'm like, okay, now let's go. Let's take this the next step. I can kind of see happiness and fulfillment from neutral, but I can't see it from a
Like
really
you got
bad place.
if you're climbing the mountain, you got to find the ledge. You got to take a break. Got to take can't go all the way to the top. You got to take a breath.
Mm, so true.
Cathy, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's been interesting hearing the New Zealand is different in some ways and very similar in other ways to how we deal with things here in the United States with self care and wellness. Tell everyone again, real quick, the name of your book and how they can get a hold of it.
Echoes of the Timeless. And it's on Amazon, Kobo, Apple Books, like all the Audible things. Or just reach me on my website, katyabatalla.org. There's my socials there and everything. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jay, and thank you, Cathy. It's been great to talk with you. And yeah, I really enjoyed that.
We appreciate you.
Thanks again, Katya. Thanks everyone for listening. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Eat Your Short Talk. Take care, guys.